Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Florence, and I'm a watercolor artist and a stay-at-home mom. Today's video is a review of Ohuhu's pastel markers from the Honolulu collection. Ohuhu was very kind to send me these markers and their mixed media book to try out. So first, let's talk about the mixed media book. It comes with a plastic sleeve, which goes behind each page, and it also comes with this booklet that instructs on how to use the plastic sleeve. The book itself is 8.5 by 6 inches, spiral bound, and easily erasable. Everything I look for in a mixed media book and a sketchbook. I really like mixed media books in general, but the paper is typically too smooth for my liking. This paper is more textured, but not too textured, as liners and colored pencils do really well, and we'll see that later. Now let's move on to the markers themselves. The pastel colors come in a set of 48 in this black case that zips closed. Each set comes with a booklet with some info like the different colors, sets, etc. And it also comes with a plastic sheet to put behind a page to keep the markers from bleeding onto the next page. It also comes with some swatch cards, which may sound silly, but I've always wanted these after seeing other artists use them. The markers themselves are very attractive and they fit really well in the hand. They are dual tip. These markers have a chisel tip and a brush tip. And the cap shows the color code and the name, so we're going to move on to swatching. Now this is my very first time with alcohol markers, so I didn't know if I needed to do just one swipe, layer, whatever. But I tried different techniques to get a feel of them. Before getting into my lemon study, I decided to practice layering and blending. Surely it is evident here how little I knew about blending. After this practice, I actually ordered Miss Han's new book on alcohol markers, and I've learned how to blend properly since. I highly recommend it, and I will link it and her profile in the description. After practicing blending, I went over with a multi-liner to see how it did, and I was pleasantly surprised since the paper is textured. Before coloring my lemon study, I used the swatch cards as reference and to pick the colors I thought would go best with the illustration. This set has very pretty greens and yellows. So I'm going to color the drawing that I showed earlier and just dive in. I want to say sorry if this segment sounds a bit weird. This is the only time I can record when my baby's napping, and during this time the neighbors are acting like it's Mad Max out there, so apologies if you hear a bunch of engines revving in the background. So I want to talk a bit about why I wanted to try alcohol markers in the first place. I've always been a fan of Miss Hans and Gretel Lusky's art. I love how bright the colors are of alcohol markers, and it reminds me of manga cover art and comic books. A lot of Miss Hans' pieces are blended so smoothly, it looks like digital art. And at first, when I started following her, I thought she was a digital artist. And then I learned that she used alcohol markers, and I was very impressed, but I've always been nervous to try. And at the time, I only knew about CapCut markers, and they're like $8 a piece. So I just held off on buying my own. And as much as I love watercolor, it's not as easily accessible as alcohol markers. Like, I don't have to set up a full palette, get my brushes out, my water jars, rehydrate the colors, all that. I have to paint at my desk, whereas with alcohol markers, I can see myself like taking them to my parents' house, taking them to a public setting or to a friend's house, and using them there. However, alcohol markers are very unforgiving. People say watercolor is unforgiving, but I'd give that award of most unforgiving medium to the alcohol marker so far. There's not a lot of room for error, like the mistakes are incredibly noticeable. That's where using other mediums come into play, like using gouache to cover mistakes, and that's similar to watercolor. All in all, it's just so pretty and fun. I legitimately had fun practicing. I wasn't taking myself too serious. I wasn't expecting like a masterpiece or like a cohesive finished piece. I was just trying it out, and even then, even with the mistakes I made, it was still a lot of fun to like experiment and to see the different effects of different blending methods and layering. They go really well with other mediums like multi-liners, pens, colored pencil, and I did that with this piece. I did go over it with some colored pencil for some shading because the set I had from Ohuhu is the pastel colors, so I didn't have a lot of dark shades, so I went in with some darker color pencils, and I also used a white Prismacolor pencil for some highlights and some texture. For the line art, I used watercolor pencils. I'll advise here, just a tip, that you probably shouldn't use regular graphite because it will make the image muddy. And that was my review of the Ohuhu alcohol markers in pastel. I want to say thanks again to Ohuhu for sending these to me, as well as a mixed media book. And if you enjoyed this video, I make tutorials, tips, and studio vlogs, so subscribe if you'd like to see more.